Welcome to Let's Make Fairy Succulent Homes, a teen and adult craft for summer reading program. I am Miss Kirsten, and in this video I will show you how to make a fairy home with succulents. Before we get started, let's go over our supplies first. You'll need 1 or 2 succulents, big enough to fit in your pot. You'll need a planter or pot. Depending on the kind that you have, you're going to want either a terracotta or ceramic, something that's breathable and easy to drain to reduce overwatering. You'll need soil specific for succulents or cacti. It should be kind of sandy in nature. You'll need rocks or activated charcoal. If your pot doesn't have drainage, this will help with that problem. And then you'll need the fun fairy home accessories. So whether that's foam mushrooms or our gnomes, or if you have moss, we have some fairy fence, as well as pebbles if you want to make a path. But there's plenty of ceramic animals or things that you can decorate your fairy home with that you can either find in stores or as well as online. The links to the items that we purchased for the West Fargo Public Library kits are listed on the resources section of the supplies and instructions document. So let's get started. Let's clean our workspace just a little bit, and we'll bring back each of these items as we are ready. First things first, step 1, make a plan for your fairy home. I wanted to make sure that the items wouldn't be too crowded in my fairy home, so I drew out a plan for the planter that I have. In your case, assess the size of the pot or the planter to determine the number of accessories and the layout of your fairy's home. Your plan doesn't have to be too fancy, just something that's a roadmap for you. Don't worry about it being perfect. Mine certainly isn't to scale in my drawing. But you can see the size of my planter by the outer circle. I drawn in where I want to put my fence, how I want to use my river rock for a pathway, where I have my foam mushrooms, my 2 little gnome guys, who are also not my best artistic drawing, and then I have a spot where I want to put the succulent in the planter, and then fill in the space with any of the additional moss that I have left. But once you have your plan, you're ready for step 2. You have your planter. Things you want to consider here is whether or not your planter has a drainage hole. If it does, you're going to want to make sure that you have a tray for underneath. If it doesn't, you want to add a layer of rocks or pebbles to allow the water to drain out of your soil and reduce the likelihood of root rot. If you got a kit from the library, you want to cover the base of the planter with the pebbles, but leave some in the plastic bag for you to use as decoration. So now we have our pebbles, and we're going to add those to our planter to have a nice layer. But not use quite all of them. I think it looks like I need a few bit more. And make sure you have a nice layer to cover the bottom of your planter so that the water can drain effectively out of your soil. And we'll set the rest of our rocks to the side. Next, after your rocks are in the base, you'll fill the planter with soil. You'll want to leave a little room at the top to add your decorations so that they can live comfortably within the bounds of your planter. So we have our soil, and we want to fill in our planter. This can get a little messy, so make sure you're in a space where dirt can go everywhere. Once we're done with that, we'll set it aside. But you want to push the dirt around to make sure you have a good amount inside of your planter. Step number 3, we get to place our succulents in your planter. You'll remove the succulents in their temporary trays and clear a space in the soil where you'd like to place your succulent. Break up the soil a little on your actual succulent itself so the root can find its place in its new little fairy home, and then press at the base of the succulent to be sure that it's stable in the planter. So we'll do that now. We'll want to take our succulent out of its temporary tray. We'll want to set this aside. want to clear a spot for it to live inside of here. Make sure you just break it up a little bit. Make sure we get it right where we want it to be. Once we get them all dressed, you want to press it just a little bit into its planter, so make sure it's nice and stable. Your hands might get a little dirty in this craft today. But then we get to our step number 4, which is the one you've probably been waiting for. We'll build our fairy's environment and accessorize the fairy home. The order of which you add your accessories depend on maybe the design that you made for your fairy home. For example, today we're going to put in our fairy fence first to outline our fairy's home. Make sure you have your dirt supporting your little accessories. And then we will create a river walk for our fairy with the leftover accessory rocks. We'll get all of our rocks out of our bag and place them in a way that looks just a little walk around. Just want to push them into the topsoil to make sure we have a nice little pathway. Now we have our rocks added for our little fairy walk. And then we'll add our magical foam mushrooms. And these stems are a little bit tall, so you may want to shorten them up a little bit to have the desired stability and height at which you have them in your planter. Make sure your accessories are stable. Next, we'll add our gnomes. We'll add them to our little river walk. We have one little gnome that's reading, pretty fitting for the library. And then we also have one who's got a cup of water and an apple. And I'll stick him next to the little mushrooms. Place him right in there. And the last step for my original design is to add our moss to fill in any open spaces where we'd like to dress up our planter. So in this case, we're just going to place a little bit around the edges. And if you got a kit from the library, your the moss that you have there is both a Spanish moss, and then you would have gotten also some reindeer moss. You just add those in wherever you'd like to fill any space at the top of your planter. You don't have to use all of it. You may have a little extra. You just want to fill in around your plant base. Alright, looks like our planter is nice and filled. Move our trash to the side. But then you've completed your fairy succulent craft. You have a new fairy home for your succulent. That's all I have for the fairy succulent craft today. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned in to more summer reading programming for teens and adults.